Since we're at the end of the conference, and I'm sure a lot of the instructors have been showing off the new interface, what do you guys think of the Wireshark 2.0 and the Qt UI? Like it? Yay, I don't have to be depressed this weekend. But to be honest, I look at it and I think that it's a good start. That's just because of the things that I'd like to do with it and the directions I'd like to take it. I think it's a good platform now for adding cool new stuff. So back in, when did we make the 2.0 release? December or January? Anyway, a few months ago when we made the release, it was a big relief because I thought, okay, all the hard work's behind me, but when we did the release, I looked at it and I thought, great, all this work is ahead of us too. So, I'm personally happy with where we are, but there's still a lot of work to do. So, Wireshark has a job. Wireshark's job is to take all the bits and bytes flowing across the network and display it on your screen in a way that's easy for you to understand and use. And that was kind of one of the major goals of the user interface, was to smooth out the workflow. And since its job is to display things in front of humans, it has to display things where the humans are, which means having a good interface on platforms that people are using. That means Windows, that means Linux, and that means Mac OS. And I feel good about the second point too. And the third goal was to have a brighter future, a better platform for adding things to the interface. And I think we're in a good place there. It just means we have a lot of work to do to add, future features. So as far as I didn't really have a lot of demo-y stuff to show, just because this is a Q&A session, and I should probably shut up and let that part of the session happen. But just to give you an example of what I mean by a smoother workflow, this is the GTK interface. If I go down here, I have a lot of HTTP data in this capture. If I go down here to HTTP packet counter, in the old interface, you had to take a quiz before you got any statistics. You had to fill in a display filter and hit a button, and then you get your stats. In the new interface, there's one less click. Whoops, where are we? You say I want an HTTP packet counter, and you get them. That's what you get. And that's what I mean by smoother workflow. There just is one less thing you had to do there to get to where you want to be. And as far as a brighter future, for new features, did you show anybody the new scroll bar?
Yes.
Have you seen the new scroll bar?
You showed it to me, but you should show it to them.
Okay. The new scroll bar in Wireshark 2.0, Laura gave it its name. That's the intelligent scroll bar. And right after she did that, I changed it. So. So.
Not so intelligent.
No, maybe intelligent-er scroll bar. I don't know. No, all I did was, in order to make it more useful, I took the packet map and I shifted it over. So instead of having everything crammed into one scroll bar, you now have this nice little packet map where you can click on a packet and jump there. And so that's minor. And as far as a brighter future, one of the cool things I'm excited about is, if we close this, and I have a file name here called curl packets plus syscalls. What do you think it has in it? It has, okay, are we loaded? We have system calls in this capture, and we have packets in this capture. The reason we have these is because there's a newish tool called sysdig. I don't know if you guys have heard of it, but it's like TCP dump for system calls on Linux. And a lot of people are starting to use it and get really excited about it. The thing nobody knows about sysdig is that it writes out to PCAP-NG files. So, so one of the things I'm kind of working on, not really heavily or seriously, is adding more and more support to for system calls in general, but Sysdig is the easiest one to add support for, so that's what I'm working on right now. So now we have, I took 2 different captures. Actually, I had 3 windows open. I had a window open in which I ran curl, one in which I ran TCP dump, and one in which I ran Sysdig. And I took the TCP dump and the Sysdig trace files, and I was able to merge them together. And this is what you have here. You have system calls and you have packets, which is really nice. But what you can do, if I pull up an IO graph, let me do one more thing. In this IO graph, I'll zoom in a little. You have system writes along with TCP segment links, or along with system receive from calls. So you can see the actual packets as they came in on the wire. You can see the system call for receive from, which is receiving the data from the wire, and you can see the system call for write, which is taking that data and writing it to disk, which I think is just really cool. But, and they don't quite match up, which I think is really interesting. And anyway, that's kind of the extent of the demo, I think, for at least for what I think we have time to show. Okay, so I think I've covered, oh, there we are. Yeah, I've covered all 3 of those, good. The other thing I wanted to go over was, so we have a new interface. This inherently means that we have what's called an adoption curve. And when I started writing the new interface, we started out down here in the lower left-hand corner, which it was just me using the new interface. And I tried to, I tried to add the core functionality sufficient for me to use Wireshark, the new interface, as quickly as I could, because I wanted to make sure I was using it and eating my own dog food and all those other kind of cliches. But as you move up, well, I have no idea where we are in the adoption curve, and I have no idea what the numbers look like, so I kind of drew the line myself, as you can tell. We kind of moved into the bleeding edge territory where I would kind of send an email to Laura and say, try this out, and she would say, it sucks. And then I would, go be sad. And we kind of moved up into everyday usage for most people, which is where we mostly are right now. And in the far upper right-hand corner are the really extreme workflows where somebody has written their own tooling that depends specifically on a feature in the GTK UI that is never going to work with an interface. So I don't know what to tell those people. But I feel good about where we are in this fake curve that I drew. And the thing I'm going to concentrate on is just to try to edge the new user interface further and further up that curve as far as we can go. Let's see. And just to give you an idea of where the new scroll bar came from, these are little snippets from tools that I use all the time. And each tool, like this little strip you see here, is from our Gerrit code review system. If you show a diff, a difference between 2 patches, you get this nice little scroll bar that shows you where the diffs are. This is from Komodo editor, which shows you a little map of, it's a text editor. It shows you a little map of your entire document, so you can go jump around the document. And let's see, this is, I think, Qt Creator, which shows you, if you're searching for text, it'll show you on the scroll bar where the text that you're looking for is. And this is Visual Studio Code, which has much the same thing. And the thing to take away from this is that I don't know how long scroll bars have existed. Was maybe 1968 when Ward Christensen did his really big demo, or possibly. But anyway, scroll bars have been around for a really long time, possibly longer than most of you here. And they were boring for that entire length of time until like 2 years ago, when suddenly everybody has their own custom scroll bars that do goofy, new, cool things. And so I wanted to be part of that, and that's why we have this new scroll bar.
Can you apply a display filter to the scroll bar only?
I don't know. You have a compiler.
I was asking if it's already there.
No, what you can do is actually. Here. the question was, can you apply a display filter to the scroll bar? And the answer is maybe. Tell you what, we have the system call thing up. If I apply a display filter, IP, on this, and if I mark all frames, okay, I've filtered down to a subset of the packets, just the ones with I used IP just because I'm guessing, that's going to be the majority of the network traffic. And if I mark all displayed, you'll note the scroll bar did something funny. There's a strip there now. Those are the marked packets. And since we were marking all the displayed packets, it's just one solid line. If I clear out my display filter, right, I can see where my network packets are now in the scroll bar. I guess it would have been more useful to mark system calls because this is just a big black blob. But you can see that, does that help? Okay. Yay, help Sai. That's all the demo I really should be doing. We should be moving along to the question and answer time, so let's go ahead and do that. I think the first thing Janice wanted, well, what? Yes, I was getting there.
Oh, I'm sorry.
The first thing we should probably do is, as Janice and Laura pointed out, is probably introduce everyone. And if you guys don't mind going down the line.
You can have that one. All right. Well, you all know me, so I don't introduce myself anymore. Well, I'm Saka. I have been developing since 2006 until about a couple of years ago, and I tried to get back into the game, but I've got my own company solving network problems, so I'm kind of busy. So, but there's, especially in these days, I get a grasp for new features that I want to develop, so it might be itchy enough that I really get started again.
Hi, I'm Graham Blois. I think I first contributed in 1999. At the time, Windows version didn't have live packet capture, which annoyed me, so I submitted some patches to help that. And then just bits and bobs over the years. As I'm a software developer by day, finding some time at night to do yet more software development is sometimes a bit tricky, but I try and keep all the Windows build systems going.
Oh, it's already on. All right. Hey, I'm Peter Wu. I'm started around 2013, I think, and I was having an issue with some packet capture which I want to decrypt, but it didn't really work. So then I found in the source code that something was missing, and then I added it, proposed it to the other developers, and they took my patch. So I was quite happy with that, and found some other issues. Continued, developing Wireshark further.
I'm Jeff Morris. I guess I started contributing to Wireshark in about 2001. I was working in telco, and it was suddenly moving to IP, and we needed dissectors for those protocols, so I wrote dissectors for that stuff, and actually became a core developer probably about 2006, just because I kept hanging around and fixing bugs, and that's about it.
Hi, I'm Martin Kaiser. I used to work in digital television a couple of years ago, and I was a bit jealous because the network guys had really cool tools for analyzing data, and we didn't have the same thing for television. So I was wondering if we could use Wireshark and squeeze our data in somehow and make use of all the GUI and filtering things. So I started, like Jeff and others, with some protocols, and I stayed around to fix bugs, and I was finally invited to the core team, and I'm enjoying being part of the project.
Hi, I'm Alexis. I'm core developer from SAC here. I'm work on the HTTP2 or quick dissector.
Hello, I'm Balin Trece, and I'm working on the Debian packages mostly and keeping the legacy version of Wireshark afloat until the scuba divers can use the Qt version as well.
I'm Michael Mann. I started contributing in about 2011. I work with industrial protocols, so I added a couple of patches to some protocols that had been under-dissected and just got hooked from there.
Anders Broman. I also work with telco stuff, and I started back in 2003 and became a core developer and keep slugging on with those telco protocols.
Hello, Pascal from France. Like Anders and Jeff, I'm working in the telecom industry. I started contributing in 2008, I think, and became a core developer in 2012, mostly focusing on the LTE-related dissectors.
Hello, my name is Dario Lombardo. I started developing Wireshark around 2013, but I'm very old Wireshark and Ethereal user, I think over than 15 years. And I was asked to join the core development team last January, so I'm the newest core developer in this group. Yeah, thank you. I'm very happy to be. Yeah.
Hi, I'm Jim Young. I'm been working with Wireshark for a long time. Higher education, I was a network guy there, and had to use it just about every day for every problems we could come up with.
All right, also on the stage we have Laura Chappell, who everybody knows, and Jasper Bungers, who everybody knows. And yeah. And what's the next step? The Q&A?
We're going to do some Q&A.
Okay.
Q&A, please.
All right.
Okay.
I have a question whenever you're ready.
You have a question?
You do? Jeez, my glasses do between
Okay,
the
I'm an audience member.
I mean, we can go back and forth.
All right, unknown audience member, there you go.
Okay, so at every SharkFest, you guys are sequestered in this room called the Developer Den. Nobody knows exactly what you're doing. So could you please speak to that so people know what's going on?
So, anybody want to take it, or should I?
Basically, it's just a really good opportunity to get together. We obviously converse a lot on email, but there's no substitute really for just sitting around the table and talking about issues and talking with hands and things like that using the whiteboard. So that's just, first of all, it's a collection. Just getting together is really positive. And the other aspect is we get to talk about some technical things in quite deep depth, flesh out ideas that are somewhat difficult to communicate via email, so we can make provisional plans for things that might or might not happen. And we just talk about other day-to-day issues about running the project and what we can do. And also, we are there. There's been a few people come in to ask technical questions, getting their build environments set up or writing dissectors to follow on from talks and things like that. So occasionally we do shut the doors. We want to have a little bit of quiet time to make discussion, but mostly the doors are open there. And we just welcome anybody to come in, ask questions, but we're just using the opportunity ourselves just to have that face-to-face discussion about issues.
Here, why don't I take that? No. Sure. I'm just going to get off the stage because then people have questions. Okay, so I have a question. I don't want to get feedback here. What's the current download rate for Wireshark? Because it seems like it's been picking up. Would you have an idea?
No, I keep telling you I'm going to get you those numbers, and I never do.
See, this is why I thought I would pigeonhole you here and get you stuck, so you had to tell me. Can you guess? I mean, is it more than 5, less than 8?
It's probably north of 1.5 million downloads a month.
1.5 million downloads a month. That's a big jump.
Well, no, we used to get about 500,000 downloads a month, and then we jumped to 1 million, and everybody thought that was impressive, but in the back of my mind, I knew that was because I turned on automatic updates on the Windows installer.
Oh, yeah. Ooh. Now if you turn it on so that it does unnecessary updates, maybe it'll be like 5 million, and that would look really cool. Do you have a feel for which country Wireshark is the most popular in right now? Or the top 5 countries?
Historically, it's been most popular in the US, but also, let's see if I can remember, Germany, Japan, Great Britain, France, a lot of the European countries in Australia, and some of the Asian countries.
Do any of you want to give a special message, something about Wireshark, your experience working with Wireshark, other than just what you do? Do you have any thoughts of where you would like to see it going, or?
One discussion item that came up between us was we now obviously have the 2 user interfaces, the older GTK or Legacy and the new QT one. And obviously we're having to now spend a bit of time working on both. How many still cling on to the old GTK interface and will never give it up out of their cold, dead hands? But is there a reason why you won't move? Is there a specific issue or just familiarity? So you got burnt by the early version and are reluctant to go on. Yeah. All we can suggest is have another go. I mean, at some time, we think we may drop the GTK version. At the moment, we're aiming to maintain it. But it obviously costs us double the effort to do things.
What's the time frame on that, you think? The future?
Sometime. We'll review it next year.
One of the things we're discussing in the room was the timeline for 2.2, and it'll probably come out sometime this summer, and we won't change any of the presence or absence of the GTK interface for 2.2. So if you download the Windows installer, you'll have the choice of installing both, and so on. But the thing is, when we make that release, that kind of sets the timeline for 2.4 next summer, and we don't know where we're going to be then.
Okay. I still get people asking me about running Wireshark on an iPad. Now, I know I talked about that a long time ago. Do you want to address that again so people know what the situation is?
Well, the way I address it is that I tell everybody that when you ask me that, I give you a weird look, and then I go off in a corner and think about it for a while and get sad. But with the new user interface, Qt actually has official and formal and standard support for both iOS and for Android. The thing is, if we made a Wireshark for iOS, even if it had a wonderful iOS-y interface, and tried to put it up on the Apple Store, Apple ain't going to put it on the Apple Store for a number of reasons. One is that this thing wants to access your network device and do a capture on it, and I don't know that Apple really is fond of people doing that. But we could conceivably, my guess is we'll have an Android interface first if we do go that direction. But the thing is, with the new toolkit, we can make a much easier go of having either of those. So once we get a few things maybe off somebody's plate, we can work on that.
Okay. Does anyone else have something that they would like to contribute from the developers? Anything in particular you'd like to say to the audience before they start asking you some questions? Do you have some questions?
Yeah, I'm one of the guys still using GTK every once in a while, and whenever I do, Alexis comes up and asks me why. Basically, when I write a blog post and I'm not careful, I'm still using the GTK version, like in the McEllen challenge when I posted the solution, and the first thing I got back from him was like, why are you using GTK still? Like, because I forgot to use the other one, because it's still my default connection to the .pcapng file format extension on Windows. My question is, when you put in features into Wireshark, obviously some of the new features cannot be ported to GTK, like the new scroll bar, I think. But everything under the hood, like dissectors and the internal logic that is happening, is it the same for GTK and Qt? Is it sort of like backported all the time?
The dissection engine is common to both user interfaces. So the actual dissection and file handling of capture formats and so on is identical between the two platforms, two user interfaces.
A general rule of thumb in that regard is that if it's available in T-Shark, then it's common to everything. And yeah, that's a pretty good clue. A lot of the features, when I did the port, I just moved some of the code into a common area, and you know, like a lot of the statistics dialogues share the same underlying code. It's just presented in a new and exciting way. So.
What about turning it over to the audience for some questions now? I know some of you must have some questions for the developers. Yes. I'm going to ask you just to stand up, and I'm just going to hand the microphone to you to pose your question.
Yeah, I've got a question. I hope I don't get banned or step on anyone's toes here. The reason I came to the SharkFest was obviously to learn the networking side, but I also have a lot of interest in security. And during the pre-conference I attended, Laura spoke a lot about security. And one of the features that she mentioned was that she had to use netmon in order to get a process ID to identify malware. And I think that's really neat and would like to see that in Wireshark. So I guess this is the question for you, Gerald. Is this something that you see that could be added to Wireshark?
Oh, definitely. Yeah, the Sysdig stuff that I was showing you earlier is definitely part of that, but that's on Linux. I think the Sysdig team is working on getting a port to Windows, but I don't know that they're working on it that hard. So that might show up. Another way we could pull it is through ETW, which is event tracing for Windows, and there are a number of ways to get that information. But right now on you can have user ID information, but it's on my machine on a PCAP on my laptop. I just need to get that capability pushed out and available in more places. But I don't know exactly what it's going to take to get that sort of capability on Windows, but I know that Windows supplies that, and we'll get it at some point.
The issue may well be that information is privileged, so you would have to run Wireshark in a privileged account to get access to that information.
We have another question back here. And maybe you guys can speak up just a little bit. It's hard to hear you from the back there.
Okay.
Well, first off, I just want to thank you guys. You guys are all great. It's an awesome tool, and thank you. And I have a very general, open question to any of you. My question is, what crazy ideas, dreams even, dreams or ideas about the software, what ideas do you have for its future? Even if they're not feasible, what are they?
Well, since I'm holding the microphone, I think we're moving into a stage where we're not doing packet analysis and then working up to the higher layers. I think we need to get the other way around, work from the higher layers and work downwards. So we have like session-based list views, and then when you're interested in the individual packets, you just drill down, but you get information on PDU level or request levels, maybe even user level. I think that's it's very hard to put it into the current Wireshark. Maybe it should be a different project, but that's something I would like to see. Yeah.
Well, this definitely falls in the sort of pipe dream category, but what I would really like is, to make Wireshark, or see Wireshark, I don't want to do it myself, I'll leave that to better programmers, but if Wireshark could use multiple threads, so I could filter that, 500 megabyte file using all 8 CPUs on my desktop, that would make me very happy. But it's way beyond my skill set anyway.
So can somebody else give us a timeline for that? 6:30, 6:45 today, maybe?
My crazy idea would be creating an OpenGL UI when Gerald Felix the Qt one. and making the frames available in 3D, so you can zoom in, zoom out to different API levels, and extending Sake's idea about creating a session-based dissection, not a frame-based one. The other idea is making Wireshark look more like Emacs inside, implementing everything in Lisp.
You're a sick man.
Any other questions from the audience? I'm sure
I just want to say, I think one of the big challenges is to keep up with the network speeds and the size of the packet files and how to filter big files. And that's something we try to figure out how to deal with, but it's a hard question to solve.
All right, do we have any other questions from the audience? You must have some. Okay. Here we go. Hand that over.
Thank you. My question is about the future of WinPCAP. What's happened with the capturing? Yeah? Because Wireshark is only for dissecting it, yeah. And I mentioned it several times. What's happened with the capturing? Yeah.
You're correct.
Yeah.
You're correct that Wireshark doesn't actually do capturing itself. That relies on the platform capture library, like PCAP on Linux, and on Windows it's WinPCAP. And WinPCAP has been almost dead in development terms for a number of years now. And prompted by another program, Nmap, they also use WinPCAP and were suffering some of the issues that we also see, not being able to capture on wireless, for instance, or local loopback. So the Nmap project funded a Google Summer of Code student, Yang, in China, and he created NPCAP, which is a move. Technically, WinPCAP worked at what was called the NDIS5 standards for fitting in the network stack, which is really old. And he moved that onto the NDIS6 standard, which fits at different places in the stack and can do different things. And that is now a work in progress. And we have made some changes in Wireshark to support the use of NPCAP, but it's still, I would still regard NPCAP as experimental. I have colleagues using it mainly to do local loopback capturing, which was always very difficult before we WinPCAP, but is very useful. And Yang has recently added support for wireless capture, so that's still even more experimental in the experimental version of NPCAP. But I would see within the next year, we may well start including NPCAP in the development installers, the nightly builds.
Okay.
And it would be an optional experimental install there that you could take if you wanted. And then the future is that at some point when NPCAP has stabilized and we're all happy with it, because it's a kernel driver, it has the potential to blue screen your system. So we really want to make sure it's rock solid, that we would switch over to using NPCAP entirely.
Okay, thank you for answering. Laura?
Any other questions? There we go.
Just a quick question. I'd like to know when we're going to see an interface for Microsoft HoloLens.
Sorry, didn't hear that.
An interface for Microsoft HoloLens.
Well, that'll be about the same time as the OpenGL version.
Anyone else? Oh, here we go.
Is there any way to capture prior to SSL encryption? And can you do that with the analyzer in some way in some future release on a client?
Well, yes, actually you can capture SL communications. So your question will be, how can you actually decrypt these communications? And for that, there belong two methods. One is using an RSA private key file, but well, typically you don't have access to the server key, right? So there's an alternative called SSL keylog file, which is an environment variable that controls some SSL libraries. And these, it influences the NSS library, which is used by Firefox, for example. And Google Chrome also implements this functionality. So if you want to learn more about this, look up SSL keylog file. And, well, yeah, it's also on the Wireshark wiki. There's an SSL page where you can also find more information about setting this up. Does this answer your question?
I think so. Okay. Have you also looked at SSL proxies such as Fiddler?
Yes.
Yeah.
I was wanting to do it directly with Wireshark and just click on a different option and say, I want to see it on my client, my stuff, my URLs going across in Wireshark before it hits the SSL encryption.
Again, that comes down to the platform capturing library. That's really not in Wireshark. That's in libpcap or npcap.
And the thing is, if there's never going to be a way to do that from one place, because as Peter was mentioning, you have your operating system that has its own, like Windows has its own crypto libraries. But if you're running Chrome, Chrome doesn't use those libraries. It uses its own. So does Firefox. So does everybody else. They all use their own little libraries. And to hook into those is not, you're not going to be able to do it, just from one spot. And yeah, as Graham just said, that's by design. That's on purpose. They don't want you to do that. So.
Any other questions from the audience? Oh. Here we go.
Mine is not a question, but it's more a recommendation because I assume that it's very difficult that you, as a group of developers, are together every year, like more than once. It will be really amazing that if you can take the recommendations that are done in the bootcamp, because we have time to see in detail bugs and things that are not working, and then take it as a direct feedback instead of going into a site and open this and that. And I think that will be like a good to-do list for you.
Anybody want to say anything about that?
I think the issue is that at the conference we have the discussions we need to have, and then we want to visit sessions, and then we want to talk to people. We've pushed a few things through, but we don't actually get that much time at the conference to work on anything. We do try and make an attempt to triage the big list in Bugzilla, mostly writing things off and saying, no, that's not going to be done. But we try and get it down to manageable portions. In the end, we only have so many CPU cycles to do stuff. So
can we upgrade you?
We need more pay.
Yeah. Is there any talk or thought about changing off of Bugzilla to something else? Is there anything better than Bugzilla?
Bugzilla is the least worst option.
Okay, that's good to know. All right. Does anybody have another question for the developers? Because if not, maybe now is the time to start the Packet Challenge Awards and get you all on your way.
I have one.
What?
I have one question.
Oh, okay.
Because regarding the bug tracking, I enter bugs every now and then, and for some reason my bugs seem to be accepted quite often. I don't know why.
So we should send our bugs to you.
No.
Thank you,
yeah,
Jasper.
You could do that. No, the problem is that if you enter bugs and these guys have to read them, they need to be precise as much as possible, and they need to be able to understand what the bug is about. So adding reproducible steps is probably helping a lot. And the most important thing, I think, is that if you ask something back from the developers, that you get an answer. Because I think that doesn't happen so often, does it? I mean, there's a bug opening, you ask something to clarify and you don't get an answer. How often does that happen?
Too often.
I'm not one of the ones that really religiously sits on the Bugzilla list, but I do see the guys there, and that's one of the things that we do at this time. We'll go through the Bugzilla list, and if we've asked a question of somebody, a clarification, and it hasn't come back after 6 months, well, we'll just close it out. We can't proceed. So, yes, we really want you to raise them in Bugzilla because that really does help us, but then if we do query something, get back to us, otherwise we're just going to close it out.
Okay, so.
Okay, one last thing. I think we should give the developers and Gerald another round of applause.